Hey everyone, Joe back again with another awesome cook. This time we're doing a little experiment. We're going to cook a tri-tip like a regular steak and then like a brisket, taking it up to 203 degrees. I handpicked these two tri-tips from my butcher for this cook. One has a decent sized fat cap and some great marbling for the brisket style, and the other has a lot less fat for the steak style. Starting off, I'm trimming the steak one of excess fat to get it ready for its bath. Once I got it all trimmed up, I set it aside and started in on my brisket rub. I do a simple rub of Lowry's, pepper, garlic, and finally salt. This has a ton of flavor, and I love it. And just a quick reminder, if you like these cooks, consider hitting that subscribe button and liking the video. It helped me out and helped push the video to more people. Thanks. People will often hate on the tri-tip as a brisket because they think this cut of meat is too lean to be cooked up to 203 degrees, and they worry about it being dry and just not as good in general. Well, I think if you find someone who's talking down on the brisket style tri-tip, it's only because they haven't tried it themselves yet. The reason I put my salt on last is because the Lowry's has salt in it already. So at this point, I don't expect much of the coarse salt to stick, but I definitely don't think adding the extra salt makes it too salty. Once I was done seasoning my brisket tip, I got my vacuum sealer out to prepare the steak style. To make this as easy as possible, I'm going to sous vide this tip up to around 140 degrees and then sear it with my cast iron. I find with this cut of meat, cooking it closer to medium tastes better than the medium rare I usually cook my steaks. Inside my bag, I'm going to put some thyme and butter to cook with the tri-tip. I personally like to season my meat before I sear it, but a lot of people will just put it all in the bag to start, and either way is fine, it's more personal preference. Once I got the steak sealed up, I set it in the fridge to rest for a couple hours because the brisket cook was going to take much longer than the steak cook. Heading outside, I had the Chargriller 980 already smoking at 225 degrees with some pecan wood, so I just set the tri-tip in and head back in for a beer break before getting the steak style cooking. So once my water was heated up to around 140 degrees, I dropped my steak in for a nice long soak and started on something I've never done before. I tried to make a chimichurri sauce. Now I didn't look up any videos, just pulled a recipe up and went to town. So it definitely was not perfect, but it tasted alright and I'm definitely going to try it again. It was a really simple recipe of a half a cup of chopped parsley, half a cup of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar, 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, 1 tablespoon of red pepper flakes, 3/4 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of coarse salt, and then pepper to taste. Once I got all the ingredients added, I mixed it up and set it in the fridge till the steaks were done. Later that night, I decided to look up what actual chimichurri sauce looks like, and that's when I realized mine was a far comparison to those. I should have used a food processor or tried to chop my parsley way finer and probably used a little more parsley than I did. Either way, I was happy with my first attempt at it and thought it added a lot to the steaks. I usually don't put anything on my steaks sauce-wise, so it was fun mixing it up. So I checked my tri-tip often when it was getting close to 160, and when it finally hit that, I went ahead and pulled it to wrap, just like I do my briskets. I wasn't worried about pulling it too early because I didn't think there'd be much extra moisture left in to ruin my bark, like what happens when you wrap an actual brisket too early. When I brought this in to wrap, it was looking really good, and I was getting pretty excited to cut into it later. But for now, it was back on the smoker till it hit 203 degrees. You can tell by the moisture on the paper after this first flip that there's still plenty of fat left on the cap so far. And I was hoping that wrapping it with that would help keep it juicy inside as well. Once the brisket tip was getting close to 203, it was time to pull the steak tip from its bath and get it ready for the cast iron. Side note, the juice left in the bag is a great treat for your dogs. I pour a little over their dry food and they love it. So back to the cook. What you want to do first after frying your meat is pat it as dry as possible, and then I put a light coating of oil on mine and salt and pepper for the seasoning. During this whole process, my cast iron was on the stove getting hot. You want to bring the temp of your cast iron up gradually, or you could hurt your seasoning. For searing a tri-tip, I think I'd actually recommend using a charcoal grill over the cast iron, mainly because of the shape of the tri-tip. It is rounded and a little difficult to get good sear all over. With the grill, I think the fire would give you a better chance to sear all over, but either way is going to taste fantastic. The fun part of using a cast iron, however, is that sizzle. Just listen to it go. I did try my best to get a well-rounded sear by holding it with tongs at different positions, and overall it turned out pretty good. Once you're done searing, it's time to give it a little more butter for topping and then a nice foil for it so it feels nice and safe to take a little rest, before slicing it into pieces and devouring it. Now, after all that work, let's see what these tri-tips look like. Man, these turned out amazing, and it was a draw in our house of which was better. I personally love the brisket style tip. The flavor was amazing, it had a great bark and smoke ring, and it was like having a small brisket that didn't take nearly as long to cook. But my wife and daughter love the steak style. You can't go wrong with the traditional steak style with a nice sear. I do have to say though, if you haven't tried a brisket style tri-tip, you really need to give it a shot. As for people saying the brisket style would be dry, that definitely wasn't the case. You can see by the juice on the cutting board there was plenty in that tri-tip. Now obviously the steak style has a lot more juices on the board, as to be expected, but I also put 2 pieces of butter on top that ran down when they melted. Alright, we got the cooked like a steak on the side, and brisket on this side. Give the brisket a bite first. That's really good. I think the brisket takes it. That's amazing. Let's look at that smoke ring and that bark. Thanks for watching everyone, and make sure you check out my other videos. If you're looking for a great chicken lollipop recipe, or if you need help deciding to order steaks from fasteaks.com or not, I can help you out. Have a good one.